The girl in the cold light. Jace walked slowly through the dirty, frozen streets of Port Dema, the trade city that never slept. Neon lights flickered above broken signs, casting strange colors on the ground. It was late. Cold wind bit into his skin through his torn jacket. His stomach growled, but he didn't have enough credits for food. He only had 1 credit left. One more useless day, he whispered, pulling his coat tighter. The streets were quiet now. Most people were inside their warm homes or busy drinking in loud bars. But Jace had no home. Just a small metal room he had rented near the edge of the city. As he passed a dark alley, he heard something, a soft sound, like a child whimpering. He stopped. The sound came again, a weak, broken sob. Curious and a bit worried, Jace turned into the alley. The wind was stronger here, and the shadows were deeper. He moved carefully, eyes scanning the trash and metal, scraps. Then he saw her. She was curled up beside a broken crate wrapped in a dirty sheet. Her body shook from the cold. She was small, maybe his height, but clearly not human. Her skin was a light purple blue, glowing faintly under the neon lights. 2 small horns curled back from her forehead. Her eyes, large and silver, blinked. Open when she saw him, she looked terrified. "Hey," Jace said softly, raising his hands. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her lips were cracked. Her hands, 3 fingers each, clutched the sheet tighter, but she was shaking too badly to move much. Her breath came out in short, weak clouds. Jace stepped closer. "You'll freeze out here." Still no answer. He knelt down beside her. The metal under his knees was ice cold. He checked her arms and saw strange marks, bruises. Chains had once been wrapped around her wrists. A slave? His heart clenched. Jace looked down at the small heating capsule clipped to his belt. It was old, but if he put in his last credit, it would give off enough warmth for a few hours. He looked at her again. Her skin was pale now, almost gray. He had a choice: save the credit and buy food tomorrow, or use it now for her. He sighed. "All right, girl. I hope you're worth it." He pulled the capsule off his belt and pushed his last credit into the slot. The device beeped softly, and warm air began to flow out. She opened her eyes a little, wider, still scared, still silent, but her trembling slowed. Jace gently wrapped his jacket around her shoulders. "Come on. My place isn't much, but it's warm." She tried to stand but collapsed. Jace caught her. "I got you," he whispered. She weighed nothing, like a feather in his arms. He lifted her gently and carried her out of the alley, ignoring the stares of 2 drunken workers passing by. "What's that thing in your arms, human?" One man laughed. "Your girlfriend freeze to death?" the other mocked. Jace didn't answer. He just walked faster. He reached his small room, nothing more than a metal box with a bed and a heater. He laid her gently on the bed and placed the heating capsule beside her. She curled around it like a scared animal. Her hands gripped the edge of his jacket like it was the only safe thing in the universe. He grabbed an old blanket from the wall hook and draped it over her. "You're safe. Now," he whispered. "No one's going to hurt you here." She looked up at him, just for a moment. A tear rolled down her cheek. Then her eyes closed and she fell asleep. Jace sat down on the floor, his back against the cold wall. He was tired, hungry, and now totally broke. But for some reason, he didn't feel angry. He looked at the girl sleeping in his bed. She was breathing softly now. Her skin had a soft glow again. He didn't know her name. Didn't know where she came from or why she was on the street, but something inside told him. She had no one else just like him. And somehow, that made her his responsibility. "I guess we both got nobody," he muttered. "But maybe that's enough." Outside, the wind howled. But inside that tiny metal room, the warmth spread slowly. The girl, safe in his arms earlier, now slept under his care. And Jace? He didn't know it yet. But this night would change everything. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the heater. Jace sat on the floor, his head leaning against the cold wall, watching the alien girl sleep on his bed. Her small chest rose and fell slowly. Her body, once shivering and pale, was now warmer, her skin glowing faintly again with that soft, bluish light. She held his old jacket tightly like it was the only thing she trusted in the world. He didn't even know her name. He rubbed his hands together, trying to keep his fingers from going numb. The heater was working, but just barely. That last credit had given him 4 hours of warmth. After that, well, he'd figure something out. He always did. Jace stood and walked over to the girl. He crouched beside her and reached out slowly to check her pulse, careful not to scare her. But just as his hand touched her wrist, her eyes flew open, silver, wide, afraid. She gasped and backed away, nearly falling off the edge of the bed. She looked around the room quickly like a trapped animal, her breathing fast and loud. Hey, easy, Jace said, hands up, stepping back. You're safe here, I'm not going to hurt you. The girl stared at him, frozen. You were out there in the cold, I just wanted to help, he said softly. I'm Jace, human, mechanic, kind of. She didn't reply, but her eyes narrowed slightly, studying him as if trying to understand his words, his tone. Then slowly she looked down at her arms, at the warm blanket and the jacket she held. She touched her chest where the heater capsule glowed softly against her skin. Her lips moved. One word. Broken, but clear. Why? Jace blinked. She spoke? He stepped forward carefully. You understand me? She nodded slowly, but her face was still guarded. Why help? She asked again, her voice soft, dry, cracked like desert stone. Jace sighed. Because you were going to die out there, and I couldn't let that happen. She frowned as if those words didn't make sense to her. He sat back down on the floor. Not everyone on this planet cares, I know. But I do. Maybe that makes me stupid. She tilted her head slightly. The glow on her skin flickered like her body was adjusting to the new warmth. You risk for nothing? She asked, her voice rough. He chuckled. Pretty much. I'm broke now thanks to you. Used my last credit on the heater. Her eyes widened. She looked at the device again, then at him. She seemed confused, even a little guilty. You give warmth, she said slowly. But hungry? He nodded. Yeah. Haven't eaten since yesterday. Then something strange happened. She shifted, reached inside the folds of the sheet she'd been wrapped in, and pulled out a small, flat metal chip. It was cracked and barely glowing, but it had a small green symbol on it. She offered it to him. What's this? He asked. She looked down. Trade token, not much. Maybe, half credit? Jace stared at her. You didn't use this for yourself? She shook her head. He took the token carefully. It was warm from her body, a little dirty, but real. Maybe he could get a cup of broth with it if he was lucky. He looked back at her, still sitting on his bed, wrapped in his jacket like it was armor. Thanks, he said genuinely. No, she replied. Thank you. For the first time, her lips curved just slightly into something like a smile. Not wide, not full, but real. Jace stood. You should rest. I'll be right here. No one's coming through that door. She nodded slowly and leaned back. Her body trembled once, then went still. Her breathing softened again. As he sat beside the door, keeping watch, his mind wandered. Who was she? What was she running from? The bruises on her arms, the fear in her eyes, the way she didn't expect kindness. It all pointed to one thing. She had been treated like an object. Owned. Used. And now, she had nothing. Except him. He didn't know why he cared so much. Maybe because he had felt like that too once. Thrown out, ignored. Maybe because he saw in her eyes the same emptiness he had carried for years. Or maybe because something inside him refused to let her go. He didn't know her story yet, but he would. She had no voice in this cruel city. But now, she had a place to sleep, a heater, a stranger who gave her his last coin. Tomorrow they would figure out the next step. But tonight, she slept in his bed, and he kept watch, the warmth of a stranger now becoming the promise of something more. The next morning came with a dull gray light shining through the small window of Jace's room. He sat near the wall, half asleep, legs stiff from spending the whole night sitting. The heater had long gone cold, and the room was quiet. But his eyes snapped open the moment he heard movement on the bed. The alien girl was awake. She sat upright, still wrapped in his jacket, her silver eyes watching him carefully. Her skin glowed faintly again, not cold now, but alive. Her hair, soft and white, fell loosely over her shoulders. She didn't look scared anymore, just alert, cautious. Jace rubbed his eyes and gave her a sleepy smile. Morning. She didn't respond. Then he pointed to himself. Jace, he said it again, slowly. Yeah, c'est. The girl tilted her head slightly, then spoke, her voice raspy but clearer than before. Lyra. Jace's smile widened. Lyra. That's your name? She gave a small nod. Nice to meet you, Lyra, he said kindly. Her lips twitched again, almost a smile. Jace stood and stretched, joints cracking. His stomach growled loudly and Lyra looked at him with surprise. He chuckled. Yeah, I'm starving. Not much I can do about it, though. Then he remembered the broken trade token she had given him. He picked it up from the corner table and stared at it. This might be good for some soup. Lyra stood carefully, still weak but steadier than before. She watched him put the token in his coat and move toward the door. You go? She asked, voice unsure. He turned to her. Just to the food stand. I'll be back in a few minutes. You'll be safe here. She didn't move. Her hands clenched, the edge of the bed. Jace hesitated. You don't trust me? She lowered her eyes and whispered, No one stay. No one. Come back. His chest tightened. He took a step closer. I will. I promise. She raised her eyes slowly and stared into his. There was something in her gaze now. Softness, pain, and a tiny flicker of hope. I come back, he repeated. Every time. He left quickly before the promise became too heavy to carry. Outside, the streets were already busy. Workers rushed by, hoverbikes zipped overhead, and shouting vendors lined the walkways. Jace traded the token for a small bowl of synth broth and a packet of dried fruit. Not much, but better than nothing. When he returned, Lyra was still there, curled, on the bed watching the door like a scared animal. When she saw him, her shoulders relaxed. He smiled and held up the food. Told you I'd come back? Lyra blinked, then stood. She stepped toward him slowly, as if unsure the food was really for her. Jace handed her the bowl and she took it gently, hands trembling. Thank you, she whispered. They sat on the bed together, sharing the small meal in silence. She ate carefully, chewing slowly, savoring each bite like it was treasure. Jace watched her, his own food forgotten in his hand. You really haven't eaten in days, have you? She looked up. No food, no water. 3 days. 3 days, he muttered. That's not survival. That's torture. Lyra didn't answer. After they finished eating, he asked quietly, Lyra, can you tell me what happened? She froze. Her fingers gripped the empty bowl tightly. Jace noticed and softened his voice. Only if you want to. There was a long pause. Then slowly, she began to speak. Taken by traders from home planet. Told I was rare. Good price. Jace's fist clenched. Slavers? She nodded. Escaped 2 days ago. Got out. When ship stopped to refuel. No one help. Too scared. Her voice cracked on the last word. She closed her eyes, her body tense. Jace didn't speak for a moment. He let the silence stretch, let her have space. Then he said, "You're safe now, Lyra. No one's going to sell you. Not while I'm around." She opened her eyes and looked at him. "Why?" "Because you're not a thing. You're a person. You matter." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. "No one ever said that," she whispered. "Well, they should have," Jace replied. "And now someone finally has." Lyra leaned back slightly, pulling his jacket tighter around herself. Her glow grew brighter for a moment, then softened. "Your warmth," she said, "not just heater." Jace blinked. "What do you mean?" "You warm, in heart. Not many like that." He looked down, suddenly shy. "You make it easy." She tilted her head. "Why?" "Because maybe I was lost too," he said quietly. "But now, maybe I've found something worth holding onto." They sat in silence for a long while, just two broken souls who found each other by chance in the freezing dark of a cruel city. But now, they had names. They had warmth, and something was beginning to grow between them. Jace was fixing a loose power cable behind the heater when he felt it. A strange heaviness in the air, like the room suddenly forgot how to breathe. Lyra sat quietly on the bed, still wrapped in his jacket, drawing little shapes on the metal wall with her glowing fingertip. The heater buzzed low beside her, but the comfort of their safe bubble was starting to thin. Then came the first knock. It wasn't loud, just a soft tap. But it didn't feel normal. It didn't feel like someone knocking out of politeness. Jace froze. The knock came again. 3 short raps, slow and cold. He stood up straight, heart pounding. Lyra's glow dimmed, her eyes going wide. "Someone followed," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Stay back," Jace said. He moved to the door but didn't open it. His fingers hovered over the lock control. "Who is it?" he asked through the metal. No answer. Then a rough voice growled, "Return what is ours, human." Jace felt ice in his veins. The voice wasn't human. The accent was harsh and the tone cruel. "This is my place." "Go away," Jace said firmly, trying to hide the fear in his throat. A short silence. Then came the sound of something scraping against the door, metal on metal. "You have 3 seconds, human. Open the door or we burn it down." Lyra stood, her whole body shaking. She pressed herself against the far wall, away from the door. "They find me," she whispered. "They, hunt-escaped ones, use trackers. I didn't know it still worked." Jace glanced back at her. "How many?" "Maybe 2, maybe more. Always armed." He cursed under his breath. No weapons, no backup, just him, a broken heater, and a scared alien girl. Then he heard a small hum, a power cell charging on the other side. No more time. Jace pulled the emergency release lever on the door. It dropped instantly, revealing 2 tall figures in black armor. Their helmets had red visors and their hands were on energy pistols. One stepped forward. "You should have stayed out of this, human." Jace didn't wait. He grabbed the loose power cable he had been working on and swung it toward the closest one. Sparks flew as the metal end smacked against the slaver's helmet. The man grunted and stumbled back. The second raised his weapon, but Jace ducked and tackled him into the wall. The pistol fired, sending a blast into the ceiling. Smoke filled the room. Lyra screamed. "Run!" Jace shouted, but she didn't run. Something happened. Her eyes glowed bright silver, almost white, and her skin lit up like fireflies in the dark. She raised her arms, and a strange wave of light pulsed out from her body, passing over Jace like warm wind. The 2 slavers froze. Their weapons dropped. Their helmets sparked and cracked, then slowly they collapsed to the floor unconscious. Jace blinked, his mouth open. What did you just do?" Lyra was breathing hard, her body glowing bright, her hair floating slightly as if gravity had loosened. "Ancestral gift," she whispered. "My kind, not just rare." We carry old power. They wanted it. For selling. Jace helped her sit down. That was amazing. You saved us. She shook her head. You saved me first. Jace stared at the slavers on the ground. We can't stay here. They'll send more, Lyra said quietly. They always do, he nodded. Then we run. Tonight. He quickly packed his old tools, wrapped some leftover food, and helped Lyra to her feet. Her glow dimmed again as her strength faded. We can hide in the undercity tunnels, he said. Old pipes and cargo. Routes, no one goes there anymore. Lyra held his hand tightly. Will you leave me? Jace looked at her firm and steady. Never. They stepped out into the smoke-filled hallway and vanished into the shadows. Behind them, the broken door swung slowly in the cold air. The slavers still lay on the ground. But Jace and Lyra were gone. Two fugitives now, bonded by fear, fire, and something far stronger than either had known before. The tunnels under Port Dema were cold, damp, and full of shadows. Jace held Lyra's hand tightly as they walked, his other hand gripping a small flashlight. Pipes ran along the ceiling, hissing with steam. Sometimes the floor shook as heavy. Transports moved above them. But down here, no one cared who you were. It was forgotten space. Old sewer lines and cargo paths, never cleaned, never watched. Perfect for hiding. Lyra stumbled beside him. She was still weak. Her glow was dim now, like a star fading behind a thick cloud. Jace had wrapped her in a second blanket he'd grabbed on the way out, and he kept checking her temperature. She was burning hot, then cold again, like her body couldn't decide what to do. Lyra, he said gently, you need rest. We'll stop here. They found a small maintenance room near an old generator. The door creaked open, and inside was a pile of old mats and metal crates. Not warm, not clean, but better than walking forever. Jace helped her sit on the mat. She leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. You used too much energy back there, didn't you? She nodded slowly. That power, it takes from me, it's not endless. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't trust you, she whispered. Not yet. Jace sat beside her, resting his flashlight on a crate. He pulled a packet of dried fruit from his pocket and held it out. Here. It's not much, but you need to eat. She took it slowly, fingers brushing his. They stayed there in silence, the soft crackle of wires humming in the background. I'm sorry, she said after a while. For what? For bringing danger. For making you run. I'm a problem. Jace shook his head. You're not a problem. You're just someone who's been through too much. That's not your fault. Lyra looked down at the floor. Her voice dropped low. I wasn't supposed to survive. I was marked. Weak body. Broken powers. They said I was defective. Jace stared at her. Who said that? My clan. The elders. They sold me off. Quietly. Told the traitors I wouldn't be missed. His heart twisted at her words. That's not weakness, that's cruelty. I didn't fight back, I didn't scream, I just went with them. Because you thought you didn't deserve better. She looked at him surprised. Jace leaned back against the wall. I've been there, too. Not like you, but people tossed me aside, said I was useless, just a street rat with greasy hands. I started believing them. Lyra's fingers touched his wrist lightly. But you're not. Neither are you. Her eyes met his. Silver. Soft. Glowing faintly now in the darkness. There was something between them. Quiet, fragile, but strong like a string tied across galaxies. She moved closer, until their shoulders touched. My body is unstable, she whispered. Too hot 1 hour, too cold the next. I cannot control it yet. He smiled. You're fire and ice, she blinked. Is that bad? No, he said. It's beautiful. Just means you need someone who doesn't mind the burn or the chill. They sat together like that, sharing the warmth of the blanket. Jace took off his jacket and draped it over both their shoulders. He could feel her heartbeat now, fast and shaky, like someone learning to breathe again. "Your hands," she said. "They're rough." "Mechanic hands," he replied. "Built. A lot, broke a lot, repaired even more." She traced the lines on his palm. "But still gentle." He swallowed, suddenly aware of how close she was. "You're not afraid of me anymore?" "No," she whispered. "You saved me. You see me. Even when I didn't want to be seen." He looked at her glowing cheeks, at the sadness hiding behind her small smile, and without thinking he wrapped his arm around her shoulder. "You can sleep now," he said. "I'll stay awake." But Lyra didn't move away. Instead, she curled up beside him, resting her head lightly against his chest. Her skin was warm, no longer burning, no longer frozen, just right. "Jace," she murmured, barely awake, "if we survive this, I will follow you anywhere." He stared at the cracked ceiling above, heart full and strange. "You don't have to follow," he said softly. "You can walk beside me." Her breathing slowed. Her hand gripped his shirt like it was the last solid thing in the world. And then she slept, wrapped in his arms, safe. The old tunnels moaned with shifting metal and echoing wind as Jace held Lyra close, trying to plan their next move. Her breathing had steadied overnight, but she still felt weak in his arms. Her powers had drained her. Now they had to move again. The slavers wouldn't stop, not after what she had done to them. And now that they knew she wasn't just rare but powerful, they would come harder, smarter, with backup. Jace packed the few things they had left, a nearly empty water bottle, half a pack of dried bread, and a small tool he always carried in, his boot. Lyra woke with a soft sound and rubbed her eyes. She looked up at him, blinking slowly. "Are we running again?" she asked. Jace nodded. "Yes, the longer we stay in one spot, the easier it is for them to find us. We need to reach the surface. There's an old transport station a few levels above. If we're lucky, we can sneak onto a cargo shuttle." Lyra pushed herself up with effort. "Then let's go." But it wasn't that simple. The lower tunnels were full of dangers. Collapsed floors, leaking gas, and sometimes even other runaways who'd given up on kindness. They moved quietly, Jace leading with his flashlight, Lyra following close behind. At every turn, Jace checked for movement. They didn't talk, just walked, their steps soft on the metal grates. Twice they had to stop, once for a low-flying scanner drone that buzzed through a vent, and once when they heard voices ahead. Jace pulled Lyra into a side passage and waited. 2 men passed, dressed in black, speaking a strange dialect. One of them carried a device that looked like a heat tracker. Lyra whispered, "They're not from the local guild." Jace's eyes narrowed. "Then who?" She shook her head. "Different scent, not traders. Hunters." Jace cursed under his breath. "They're paying others now. That means they're desperate." They waited until the men were gone, and then continued their climb through the tunnel maze. Pipes creaked, warning of shifting pressure. Rust flaked under their boots. Jace used his tool to bypass a locked grate, and they entered a narrow shaft barely tall enough to crawl through. Lyra's voice was soft. "Why are you doing this still?" Jace paused, turned back, and looked her in the eyes. "Because when I found you, you were freezing to death, and instead of begging or attacking, you looked up at me like I mattered, like I was worth something. No one's looked at me like that in years." Lyra lowered her gaze. "But I'm nothing. I was thrown away." He reached forward and touched her face gently. "Then maybe I'm nothing too, and 2 nothings together make something." She smiled then, tired but real. "That sounds like a human saying." Probably is. Finally, after another hour of crawling, climbing, and avoiding patrols, they reached the upper levels. The walls were cleaner here, the lights less broken. They had entered the old transit section, a forgotten part of the city's transport system, now mostly used by smugglers and tech scavengers. Jace knew someone here, A man named Bren, an old pilot who sometimes smuggled people out for the right price. They reached a locked door with faded numbers and a half-broken keypad. Jace tapped a pattern into the pad. The door clicked open. Inside was a small chamber filled with rusted parts and blinking lights. And at the back, half asleep in a chair, was Bren, a bald man with a beard like wire and one glowing cyber eye. Well, well, Bren muttered, sitting up. If it isn't the junkyard ghost, Jace grinned. Still alive. Barely, Bren said, eyeing Lyra. Who's the girl? She's with me, Jace replied, voice firm. Bren whistled low. She's not from around here. No, and she needs off-world passage, we both do. Bren scratched his chin. That'll cost. I've got my old tool set, plasma cutter, micro-stitcher, still in good condition. Worth at least 2 seats. Bren leaned forward. Jace, that's your whole living. I know. Bren looked at Lyra, then back at Jace. He studied them both for a moment, and then nodded. All right. Shuttle leaves at dusk. Bay 14. No guarantees. Once you're on it. That's enough, Jace said. They stepped back into the shadows of the upper tunnel. Lyra placed her hand in his. You gave up everything again, she whispered. He smiled. You're not a thing. You're someone. I'd give it all again. She squeezed his hand. Then I'll protect you. Next time it's my turn. As the city above them burned with neon lights and silent threats, 2 fugitives walked together, toward a future neither of them had planned. But now, neither of them feared it. The cargo shuttle trembled as its engines roared to life. Inside the small, dim transport bay, Jace and Lyra sat close together behind a stack of metal crates, hidden in shadows. The shuttle wasn't meant for passengers, just boxes, fuel drums, and machine parts, but it didn't matter. It was moving, and that meant escape. Lyra rested her head on Jace's shoulder. Her body still felt fragile, but she was warmer now, her glow stronger, her breath calmer. Every few minutes, her fingers would tighten around his arm like she needed to make sure he was still there. He didn't mind. He held her back with one arm wrapped around her shoulders, like a shield made of skin and bone. I've never been on a ship before, Lyra whispered. Jace smiled. Well, this one isn't pretty, but it'll take us far from Port Dema. That's what matters. Where are we going? He paused, then shook his head. I don't know, I didn't ask. I just told the pilot to take us as far away from the outer rings as possible. Lyra looked up at him. Then I'll follow you. Jace's heart beat harder. You don't have to. I want to, she said, her voice stronger now. You didn't just save my life, Jace. You gave it back to me. The ship tilted slightly as it left the gravity of the planet. A soft hum surrounded them. Outside the small vented window near the ceiling, stars began to shine. Jace looked at her face, still tired, but calm. You're not afraid anymore, are you? I'm not alone anymore, she answered. For a while, they said nothing. Just sat together, wrapped in a shared blanket, hidden in the belly of a ship that didn't know their names, didn't care where they came from. But for the first time in a long time, Jace didn't feel small. He didn't feel broken. He felt needed. After some time, Lyra shifted and reached into the pocket of Jace's jacket, the one she still wore like armor. She pulled out something small, the broken trade token she had given him days ago. I kept this, she said, showing it to him. Because you didn't throw it away. You treated it like it had value. It did, he said. It came from you, she smiled. So did I, and you didn't throw me away either. He took the token from her fingers and pressed it into her palm. That's because you're not broken, Lyra. You're rare and strong. You just needed someone to remind you. Tears welled up in her eyes, but this time she didn't hide them. She let them fall. I thought I'd die in that alley, she whispered. I thought no one would even notice. I noticed, he said. And I'm glad I did. They leaned into each other, two souls once forgotten now slowly rebuilding, not just surviving, but healing. Suddenly, the shuttle jerked. The pilot's voice buzzed through an old speaker. "We're passing through an old patrol zone, might get rough, hold on to something." Jace wrapped both arms around Lyra protectively. She gasped, but didn't pull away. The ship rattled, metal groaning under stress. For a moment, it felt like everything might fall apart again, but it didn't. When the shaking stopped, Lyra exhaled and whispered, "I'm still here." "So am I," he said. She turned her face up to him, silver eyes glowing soft in the dark. "What happens now?" Jace looked out at the stars. "We start over. New planet. New names, if we need to. I'll find work. You'll get stronger. And, if they find us, then they'll have to go through me." Lyra smiled, resting her forehead against his. "You make me feel safe. You make me feel alive." For the first time in years, Jace believed that maybe his life wasn't meant to be spent alone in dark alleys and broken apartments. Maybe it was meant for something more, for someone, and that someone now slept in his arms. As the shuttle glided through space, the two of them held each other like gravity itself depended on it. The world they had escaped from was far behind, and what lay ahead was unknown. But neither cared. They had no money, no ship of their own, no place waiting for them. But they had warmth, they had trust, they had each other, and in a galaxy full of silence and steel, that was more than enough.